Good evening and welcome. My name's Ray Whitby. I'm from the Aspiring Runners YouTube channel. And if you're joining us live here on YouTube or Facebook, you're so welcome to join us. This is the Eastbourne Parkrun Lockdown Livestream event. I do believe this is the 5th episode that we've got. And it is great to have you this evening. It is hot out there. It's hot in here in the studio, but I'm not alone. Let's bring him in straight away with no introductions because he does get a little bit embarrassed. Simon Jones. How you doing, Simon?
I'm not too bad. How are you, Ray?
As I say, just hot. It is sweltering out there, and it does require a few survival tactics, just subtle readjustments, just to be able to survive the heat, I think. But I know that you were somewhere that you could actually cool down.
Yeah, up until about half an hour ago, I was on Eastbourne seafront, in and out of the sea for the last few hours. So I'm probably slightly sun-kissed. I think my goggles marks from diving in and out of the sea are still on my forehead. A little bit. Yeah, definitely a little bit sun-kissed today, but it's all been worth it. It's all been worth it. How's your day been?
Yeah, again, just baking hot. It's just trying to find ways in which to just keep the family calm, the dog calm as well, not to take too many risks. But we did get out there, walked in the canopy of the forest, just hugging the South Downs way. And it's just stay hydrated, try and find a fan and see what we can cope with. So it's just been one of those days. Blinding weekend, I think it's promising to be very hot, approaching for the rest of the week. So as runners, we do need to think about ways of staying safe, staying hydrated, and not overdoing it ourselves. So yeah, coming up in the show, very topical then, we're going to be talking about how we can actually run in the heat and survive. And we're not just talking about adapting, so we're running at our very slowest or running at midnight. But we've got to do something to keep ourselves going. Also coming up in the show, we're going to be looking at some of the best or worst jokes for running out there. And then, of course, we're going to be looking at what kind of runner are you? But before we get into any of that show, I think what we really want to do is just take a brief moment to recap on the last episode where we were looking at the issues of mental health. And for me, Simon, it was just such a blinding episode. It was just an incredible deep insight with yourself and Debs coming on the show and talking about some very personal stuff. And I found it illuminating, not just picking into your insight, but I think picking into the mindset of people that really and truly have been struggling and how they are or have been trying to rebuild their lives and how they can move forward and how running has been a part of that as well.
Yeah, I think it definitely, for me, and I know for Deb, speaking with her, as well, it's definitely something that is quite an anxious topic for us to talk about, especially when it's, we're talking about our own mental health. But actually, as we've talked about before, if it just helps one person realize that there is a way to, ease the symptoms of mental health. Running or exercise is not going to get rid of it, but it will help with the symptoms. So if it helps one person to reach out or to speak to a family member or a friend, then, it's fantastic and it was worth every second of it. So, mental health and running is massively close to my heart and Deb's. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So it was good to talk about that.
Yeah, and what we're saying today is, it's just because we dealt with it in a previous episode, we're still here. We still are waiting to reach out. If you wanted to reach out to people, we are here. We can pick that up. So whether you want to contact this show at aspiringrunners@gmail.com, or you can write into eastbourne@parkrun.com, and there are people that will be able to take care of you and take you on that journey to help you out. It's just a case of being brave and taking that very first step, and hopefully together we can help. So yeah, just that brief recap over the last episode as we move into this episode. I think it'd be great really to figure out what kind of running do you most enjoy, or what is it about running that you most enjoy? So as I say, whether you're joining us live on Facebook or on YouTube, it'd be great if you can just comment away to be able to pick up some response and how you're doing and how you're interacting with running these days. Why we're talking about what are the things that you most enjoy about running is really trying to get an insight into the kind of runner that we are. So to say, very topical, what kind of runner are you? What do you enjoy about running the most? What is the most enjoyable thing for you, Simon, about running?
It depends on the run. There's the fitness element to it, so I really enjoy the runner's high afterwards. I think for me sometimes it's the view from where you can run. So knowing we're very, very fortunate here in Eastbourne that we are on the foot of the South Downs. So there are times where I've been out for a run. It's been a glorious day, and at one point you can see almost across to the Isle of Wight and then across to Dungeness the other side. So some of the sights and views are fantastic. But I think the sights are fantastic for me, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why I go out and run as much as I do.
Yeah, fantastic. I think for myself, I'd definitely be looking at accomplishments. I totally get that. I love this part of the world that we live in, being in the foot of the downs by the seafront. It's just absolutely beautiful. But I think also the challenges that I can set myself and just to get out there and train and try to achieve, it is its own reward, just being able to achieve those targets. Not to crucify myself if we don't get there, but yeah, just to have that challenge to just push myself in life. And I think it can be a complete distraction as well. As we're talking about mental health benefits a couple of weeks back, in the running, I think it's just a great way of de-stressing the body and the mind, and just to be able to focus on something else other than the hell for leather type of life that we can lead sometimes. And a lot goes on, we know that. So just being able to take ourselves out, putting ourselves into those beautiful environments of the English countryside, it's just nothing else like it. And then the chance of being able to run with other runners, absolutely fantastic also. So yesterday I was out there in the morning, 10K run along the seafront, which is just gorgeous weather, hardly any wind. So just beautiful, very photogenic. But the guys that I was running with, only realized when I turned up to the start line, one of them was trying to do a 10K, his very first 10K.
Wow.
And then so we started early. We started at 7 o'clock, which is a little bit too early for me, but I was doing it for the team. Went out there and it was just blinding hot after about 20 minutes. And how this guy managed to survive, I'll never know. But I think it was down to the encouragement. We just didn't push it, just to be able to keep it nice and relaxed. But yeah, perhaps it was a little bit of a faux pas to take him out for his very first 10K run on that kind of weather. But great sense of accomplishment. And I think he can use that and bounce on to Mark Revenell. If you're watching this live, kudos, mate. Well done to you. And now we've got to push on for your half marathon. So yeah, no pressure. Right, shall we get on? Sorry.
What I was going to say, yeah, I think 7 o'clock, is quite late for me usually. But I went for, I'm normally out at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I know other people are like, Natalie is, one of the run directors and event directors, as she said there, that's not early. So I agree with her massively. But I actually went out at 10 o'clock yesterday for a run. I thought I would run 3 laps of Shinewater Park, which is about just under 10K. I thought it'd be lovely to go out and do that without stupidly going out when it's getting ridiculously hot. And I managed just under 2 laps and was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So I should have taken my own advice after, with running in the heat, as we will talk about. But yeah, I struggled yesterday to get even 4 miles under my belt for me. But,
wow.
It's still 3.5 miles out there, though, which is good.
But just got to say, you were actually wise enough just to say, yeah, that was enough. Know your limits. And I think in this weather, you really have to. And we'll come on to that in just a moment. But I think what we've got to do is get the news out of the way. Every time we do the news, we always put it in as a 2-minute news items, and it always seems to take much longer. So I've taken that out and just said, here's the news. So first item in the news is Parkrun HQ. Let's look at what's happening in the UK and the rest of the world. So Simon, please take away.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. So yes, New Zealand is still the only country that has active park runs going at the moment. So that's good for New Zealand, and I know that the park run community is still actively looking on a week by week basis around the world to see when other events can come about. Those that are registered with Parkrun will notice that they probably received an email this week with regards to the COVID-19 framework, which has been a hot topic between the Eastbourne volunteer community. We've been discussing that via messages. There's potentially going to be a meetup where we discuss a socially distanced meetup, obviously, to discuss it further. But it looks like that there's plans in place for reintroducing Parkrun when COVID is still around. I think Parkrun HQ UK wants to get Parkrun back because of the benefits to the community, the benefits for people's mental health, as we discussed last week, and the benefits to those that get the most out of running with others, and sometimes probably can't get that. So I think they're looking at all avenues now. So they produced a COVID-19 framework, which is, looking at the volunteer side of things, looking at the junior park run, looking at the 5K park run, and looking at ways in which, should COVID-19 still be prevalent, how it can be reintroduced into the community. So things like not using stopwatches anymore. Everyone using mobile apps, because there is an app out there, and I think Parkrun are looking to utilise and increase this and the utility of this, so that there's less communication. There's conversation where we're looking at having more, larger areas to congregate in. Not all parkruns are going to be able to do this. So it's looking at all of the opportunities. One of the things that I saw on there is, no high fives, no spitting, which, I love to high five people that I know around the course. Being social.
At least you didn't say you like to spit at people on the course. So we spared that. That's good.
No, but it's it's looking at all of the opportunities, and it's looking at things like all the bibs need to be washed after every event. All of the finisher tokens need to be washed after every event. And I know that in Eastbourne we're looking at, I think we've already ordered another set of numbers so that we can alternate the weeks to see for numbers, so we can minimise the risk to the community with COVID. And I think
that's the interesting thing that you've just captured there, is that the document itself, it obviously seems as though it's trying to implement parkrun again prior to there being a cure for COVID, for coronavirus, and in some ways, I mean, that will actually give a lot of parkrunners hope that it won't be too long, in a relative sense, before we can run again. But of course, that's being carefully managed by this document. They're trying to figure out how we can make it safe for everybody, and that's all inclusive for runners and the volunteers, as well as any first aiders and emergency service response. So yeah, it's trying to be wise in this environment before there's a cure. And yeah, so I think in part, that may actually help, but obviously it's trying to then temper that, because they obviously don't want to do it too early in case there are other issues, and there are greater issues to consider. For example, we're talking a while ago about tourism. Parkrun tourism could suddenly occur if there's a flare-up in one area and a city or a big town has to close down. What happens to those? Are they then going to all bail into the town or the city next door?
Yeah, I think we get a lot of tourism down in Eastbourne. Where there's quite a few local park runs to us. There's Hastings, Seaford, Uckfield. There's 4 park runs in Brighton as well. So, and I know that we get visitors from all of those on a weekly basis. So the issue comes if Hastings has a lockdown because they've had a rise in COVID, will runners then come over to Eastbourne? So that obviously increases the risk there. So there's still a lot of questions. It's good to see that the Parkrun HQ have produced this, because I think it is showing that they are thinking about running whilst there is still this pandemic out there. And I think for I'm a Parkrun, and I know that there are others that are itching to get back to Parkrun. People that have completed a Couch to 5K throughout lockdown that just want to be involved. Some of the family members I've been with today have been discussing, oh yeah, I can't wait for Parkrun to get back. I just want to get out and test myself and things like that. So it's good to see that there's plans in place for it to come back. There's still no dates in place, but it's good to see that should it come back, whilst COVID is still prevalent, there is a base plan in place. And I think it will be down to local parkrun event directors and run directors to get together, risk assess exactly what can and can't be done. Because I know for the Eastbourne, for our parkrun, our local parkrun in Eastbourne, there definitely needs to be tweaks and changes with certain things. So potentially the start might need to be somewhere else and the finish somewhere else after that. So it's coming up with ideas of minimizing the risk along the way. So it might be that the same people set up and put away every week, rather than 2 or 3 people set up and then 2 or 3 different people help finish. So it's it's doing all of those, having more volunteers to help with scanning, and in further apart areas, so that they can capture less people, come into contact with less people. I think they on the planner, it said I think they wanted 1 scanner for every 50 people, and knowing that Eastbourne can have over 400 runners, that could be potentially 8 scanners, barcode scanners, and we normally have between 3 and 4, 5 at any one time. So it's looking at increasing our volunteer list and keeping them as safe as possible. It's because they're going to be the ones that are going to be in more contact, because they're going to be having all of the runners coming past, handing out the tokens, and it's minimizing that risk as best as possible. But I know that there are plans in place.
That's right. Kind of curious that whilst Parkrun seems to be gearing up to reopen the Parkrun and the run events, but we also, next in the news item, we're also finding that there are other race events and run events that are actually going in the other direction. So if we just look at the next item in the list, we've got marathons coming up, Beachy Head and London. And certainly with the Beachy Head Marathon, I think they are still planning to go ahead. I think they've split it up a little bit, so they're running it over 2 weekends and not just the one. And they're trying at the moment to implement a series of rules where they will obviously protect the start and finish areas with masks, with hand sanitizer, etc. But then they're talking about things like not being able to overtake in narrow parts of the course. And having run the course, I know you've done it as well, Simon. And if anybody else has run the Beachy Head Marathon course, it'd be great if you just give a big shout out to it. But you can imagine that actually it's quite a tricky thing to do. I mean, the marathon itself is quite a grueling event with 1,200 meters of climbing throughout the 26 miles, let alone trying to pace it where you've got to take that into consideration. I mean, will it put people off, I wonder, with all of that in place?
Yeah, I know that there's a very, very narrow part when you run out of Alfriston, where it gets it's almost in a mini ravine where you're just running up on this chalk, and it's very hard to overtake. So it's looking at all of those. So I'm not in Eastbourne Beachy Head Marathon this year because it's on the weekend that my baby's due to be born. So I am not partaking this year, because the last thing I want to be is 13 miles away from Eastbourne and I get the phone call to say, darling, I've just gone into labour. So unfortunately, I will not be entering this year.
Yeah. And looking at London Marathon, we do have some news now that was released earlier this week. And the news is basically that it has been cancelled for all participants except the elite runners. So it's 43,000 runners. Will be somewhat disappointed, I'm sure. And we'll have to wait till next year before the next London Marathon comes about. But for the 100 runners that are there, the elite runners, it promises to be quite a spectacular as well. Who have they actually got in the lineup, Simon?
Well, I'm definitely not in it. I think let me just see. I think it. Oh, blimey! You've put me on the spot there. Mate. I'm really, really sorry about that. Just trying to think.
Mo Farah, was he due to line up, and Kipchoge?
He's definitely doing it, and is it Bekele's doing it as well? I'm definitely confirmed, and I think Mo's confirmed as well. Wow. I might be jumping the gun there, but I'm pretty sure that he's confirmed as well. The other news with London Marathon is that the 2021 event, so obviously the London Marathon is normally held in April every year. I'm fortunate that I've run it a couple of times as well, but next year it's due to take place in the first weekend in October. So it looks like they've moved it from a spring marathon to a autumn marathon. So whether others are going to take suit with that as well, because after training for London Marathon and Brighton Marathon and other spring marathon, there's nothing worse than running an 18-mile training run in February when it's pouring with rain, freezing cold and blowing a gale. So actually, training for an autumn marathon is lovely, unless it's like this, because it's tropical. But it's running from spring where it's cooler, it's brighter, it's more, there's more light in the day, so you can run earlier and it's bright. Because I know a lot of people are. I've got friends that don't like running first thing in the morning when it's pitch black, or late at night because of the potential dangers. So, and they're running for their safety. I've got some female friends that don't like running unless they're with someone else. So this could potentially be a game changer for a lot of people that can now train throughout the summer. But I wouldn't want to be doing a 20-mile training run in this heat. I can tell you that for a fact.
Yeah, and of course, when you move a marathon, such a major event, it really will impact the running calendar as well. Now, I know that many people run more than one marathon in a year, plus they also have their preferred events as well. So we're talking about the London Marathon being at the beginning of October, but at the end of October is traditionally when we've got the Beachy Head Marathon, which also attracts quite a crowd, maybe not as large as 43,000, but you do get the faithful that try and do it. So it'd be interesting to see which ones people will go to. So yeah, it'd be kind of curious. Which ones do you go for? Who are you loyal to? Or is it a challenge? I mean, how do people approach it? It'd be great if you could comment. Just going back to your previous comments, Natalie says, I prefer to train in the winter. Otherwise, it's just too hot. I totally get that as well. Except that I find it really difficult to get out there and train, especially when, after a day's worth of work in a freezing cold warehouse, as it is during the winter time, to be able to get out there, don in full regalia, and then just grind and grind and grind. It takes a real effort. Maybe it's just not for me. Maybe I haven't got the right mentality for it. But it really is a hard push. But then what I try and do is for the winter period is just have that as a season of just really low, slow miles, really long, but very low pace, just to get that aerobic base training in, which I think every runner should do. Every runner knows about it. If not, well, let us educate you. You need to type something in the comments so we know how to shape our discussion accordingly. But moving on quickly, if that's okay, just some quick achievements, local achievements as well. We've got to look at Beachy Head, and there is a guy. Crazy. It was earlier this year. It was about a month ago. So sorry, this isn't cutting edge news, but it's such a worthy news item. I thought I'd bring it in. Ollie Gordon has completed the Beachy Head Marathon. Well, completing it once, I think, is quite a feat. But he's run it 4 times in one go.
That is mental. That is absolutely mental. I've run it twice, and it's known as one of the toughest marathons in the UK, if not probably the toughest, because it's end of October. The weather can be sunny and 25 degrees, or it can be -3 and blowing an absolute gale and chucking it down with rain. So and I've run it in both, so I know how bad it can be. But to go round that distance, I take my hat off to him. Fantastic achievement, and the money he's raised for the local Beachy Head chaplains and Macmillan Cancer Support are fantastic. So I absolutely take my hat off to him. He's an absolute Looney Tune, though. I'm sorry, need to be a different kettle of fish for that.
Certainly on a different level to myself, say Looney Tune. I think he could become a legend. I don't know if there is a record for completing it 4 consecutive times. He's put it down in 28 hours and 30 minutes. That's incredible. So he went from 2 p.m. on Saturday through to 6:30 Sunday night. So running through the night as well. And that is a feat in itself, running in the night over a trail course as well. You've got to have some pretty powerful lights out there, making sure that you don't damage yourself, because you need to be able to complete the run through something like that. But yes, as you say, worthwhile charities, absolutely fantastic. Well done, Ollie Gordon. Brilliant effort. And then going on to another Eastbournian, is that right? Eastbournian lady who was running with a GPS watch to make animal shapes in order to save wildlife. And we do have a couple of photos of what she's been able to achieve, which I think are absolutely brilliant. So hopefully you'll be able to guess what they are. Viewers, you can comment away. But I think, Simon, you want to jump in, surely. What do you think of it?
I think that is brilliant. I think that takes a lot of planning to know exactly where to go to get that kind of animal. Obviously, the bird on the left-hand side is I'm going to say it's quite obvious. To me, it's quite obvious. I think the very skinny gecko or lizard on the top right, that is my personal favourite. I have to say that takes a lot of planning to do that. And that bottom right hand one looks like a slice of apple pie to me. I don't know what animal that is, but it definitely looks like more like a slice of apple pie. So Ray, what do you think that is?
Crikey, I just can't tell. Now that you've said it,
You have to look at it this way.
Now that you've said it's a Rorschach test, I'm sure. A Rorschach test. It's you look at it and whatever comes to mind is the right answer. It tells a lot about an individual's psychological makeup. I was going to say problems, but I won't go there. So if I defer that for another time, then men in white coats won't turn up on my door and cart me away. So if that's okay,
is that my doorbell?
But I think it's just a fantastic idea. And again, trying to be creative, especially during this lockdown season, and then running for a charity as well. So obviously she's running for trying to find it. Is it mentioned there? It just says running for saving wildlife rescue. Just absolutely brilliant, I think. So
she was due to run the London Marathon this year, I believe. So obviously, with everything that's gone on, I think part of her training runs, she's obviously decided to get a little bit more creative. And I think we all need to take a leaf out of a book sometimes. And instead of, for me, like running around Shinewater Park, doing loops around there, trying to create the perfect O, which I don't think you can do around Shinewater Park, but trying to go out and create a little animal. Or some people have written words, and I've seen those done on Strava or other apps. So very, very creative. I'll take my hat off to that one as well.
So if you need to practice before you head out, buy yourself an Etch-a-Sketch, or get into your attic, dust out the boxes, find yourself the Etch-a-Sketch, and then you can practice with your GPS watch out for real.
An old AA roadmap. Instead of Google mapping it, get an AA roadmap and try and draw little bits on there. Anyone under the age of about 30 will not even know what an AA roadmap is. They always think of it as Google Maps. That seems to be what they check everything on these days. AA roadmap.
So if we just say well done to Leanne Pilbeam, certainly giving us a smile and something to talk about today. So I think this is a good moment to actually go into how do we cope with the heat then, Simon. If we're going to get out there, we don't want to have our running schedules or training programs interrupted too much, but it's really important that when we get out there in the heat that we are doing things correctly. We're taking care of ourselves as well as others. So what advice have you got for the audience?
I think sometimes when the heat comes like it has done, it's very hard to acclimatise to the heat because this is an unnaturally hot time for us. We've had a couple of times where it's gone in its mid-30s. It was 34 degrees when I was in the car travelling to the beach earlier. So for me, there'd be very little other times I can run in that kind of heat. But I think some of the points is, try and get your body used to the heat. So running if you're going to start running, try and run when it's cooler as it starts to get warmer so that your body can get used to running in heat, and probably at different times of day. So for me, I'm definitely an early runner. So for me, I usually miss the hot runs, but I try and if I run later on after work, like this time of night, I would try and go later when it's cooler as well. So I think that's probably one of the key tips for me. I try and run in shady spots as well. So obviously if it's 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock and the sun is as high as it's going to be very hard to find a shady spot. But for me, if you're running on either side, if you're running down a road for argument's sake, one side may be shadier than the other. So I would tend to run on that side, because it will be a couple of degrees cooler. So that's a key tip. I'd probably say for those people that warm up, I'm probably one of those that neglects to warm up properly. When it's warmer, is make your warm up shorter. So obviously in the winter when it's colder, warm up for longer so that your body can get warmer. Whereas while it is hot, it's obviously going to be easier to warm up quicker. So perhaps cut it by half. I
Yeah,
think,
and I think one of the other things you've got to look at as well is in the hydration strategy. It's not just enough to be drinking water. I mean, you do have to be careful about the amount of liquids you're imbibing anyway. If you drink too much, it's just as bad as not drinking at all. I mean, both can actually lead to serious medical problems, if not death. And they have been well published, especially in very hot marathons. But I think also looking at your electrolyte balance as well, making sure you've got enough sugars and salts coming into your system on a regular basis throughout the distance. And of course, the aftermath. So making sure that when you get back that you are doing a proper cool down period, but you are stretching so you get the lactic acid out, but you're also replacing those electrolytes, getting the protein in as well. You've got to take care of the entire system before, during and after. So it's just highlighting what should already be there is good practice for any runner. But yeah, just making sure that you are doubling up on the liquids and making sure that your body is hydrated.
I would say on that point as well, one of the things that I was told very many years ago, which has kind of stuck with me with drinking, because I've run a couple of marathons that have been very, very warm, and it's kind of worked in my favour, I think, because I've never not finished a race because of lack of hydration or overhydrating. So for me, someone once said to me, go out and do a training run and weigh yourself before and weigh yourself after. And the weight that you've lost is not because the fat you've burnt. 95% of it is going to be the water that you've lost. So that is what you need to hydrate with in a run. And I know that I can go out for a 10K run now and probably lose 3 pound of weight, comfortably lose 3 pound of weight. So for a 45-minute run, that's the hydration I need to be considering. Yeah. So it's all about, especially in this heat, we should be hydrating anyway to keep ourselves, it cools the body down by keeping ourselves hydrated. But it's drinking before, during, and after for runs, making sure that you're properly hydrated. And it's, if sometimes I've gone out for a run, not drunk enough beforehand, and I've struggled as a result because I'm losing hydration just on a training run. So it's making sure that you drink enough before. If you're only going out for a short run, potentially not drinking and not having any drink with you, then drinking afterwards to make sure that you're replenishing what you've lost. Because for us,
what should a person take out on a run? Should they be running alone late at night? It does depend on the area, it does depend on the country, it does depend on the individual as well, and how comfortable and how confident they are feeling at that time. But also that kind of identification. I mean, I don't do enough, and I really liked that idea of during the park runs, you'd have that running band, and some of the running bands you can get and modify. So you got emergency contact details on, which I think is a great idea. Keeping yourself safe and also your loved ones in connection with you should anything actually befall you. So yeah, having your running weight is a really important thing, written down somewhere so that they can tell if there is a major issue should you happen to keel over. So yeah, certainly got to keep yourself hydrated and hydrating properly throughout. Other tips of advice? Have you got anything else in the list?
Yeah, I think the other ones are fairly obvious, but I'm quite bad at doing some of them myself sometimes. A lot of it is probably making sure your what you're wearing is quite loose fitting, so it's quite breathable. I see it. I have gone out sometimes in probably a tighter fitting running top, and it just tends to feel worse wearing it when it's hot. For people like myself that are follically challenged, it's making sure that we, wear a cap to protect ourselves from the sun, protect your skin and your eyes. So sun cream. And again, I'm quite bad at times for doing that, or, and sunglasses as well. So, it's making sure you've got the right equipment. That's definitely key for me. I would probably say one of the things for me is, if you suddenly fit like when I did yesterday and went out on that run, I got to a point where I felt this isn't working. I'm not enjoying this. And I stopped. So don't overestimate your abilities in the conditions, because if it had been 10 degrees cooler, I wouldn't have had a problem running around 2 or 3 times around the park. But it was that warm. I just got to a point where I need to stop. I just need to stop. And I think the last tip from me is, when you've finished your run, try and let your body naturally return, body temperature return to normal. So for me, I'm quite fortunate. I go and sit in my garden, in a bit of shade on the bench, and take some drink, and go from there. I think sometimes if I'm rushing to get to work potentially, I'll have a cool shower to bring my core temperature down as well, just to feel cooler. So that's potentially a good one as well.
I was in India quite a few decades ago on research trip, and at break times they always drank coffee. I always thought that was bizarre because it was like a minimum of 25 degrees during the day, getting up to 30 at that time of year. And they were drinking coffee. It's like, well, how on earth do you stay cool by drinking coffee? And they said, well, you drink something hot, your body sweats, the sweating action will cool you down. So, okay, that's an interesting way of doing it. Didn't really work for me. I just felt hot throughout. So I felt hot in the morning, drank coffee, still felt hot, and got into the evening, was just hot all the way through. Really, really interesting. I know the other thing I'd advocate as well is an ice bath for the legs after a long run, especially in the heat. Again, it's a great way of trying to help lower the body temperature slowly. You don't want a rapid decrease in the core temperature, but just to cool off the legs, but also to really help clear the lactic acid out of the legs as well. Takes a bit of getting used to, though, if you haven't done it before. I certainly reached some very high-pitched squeals when I first tried it, much to the chagrin of my children. I don't think they'll ever let me forget it. But yeah. So,
I would say good luck getting any ice from any supermarkets in these conditions, though, because I challenge anyone to find a supermarket that is selling any ice bags. I've tried 3 today and there weren't any in any of them. So good luck.
Yeah, it's gone. Okay, if we just briefly jump into this next item, we need to look at what we're lovingly called the Thompson Ticklers. Mike Thompson, big shout out to you. We do thank you for what you have shown us, which is hilarity, or not so much. I don't know if it's head in hands, just despair, or is it just holding onto your ribs because your sides are going to fall out through laughing. Simon, have you got the list in front of you?
I do have the list. I feel like I shouldn't be reading these because I feel they're absolutely awful. But, one of them, what kind of running shoes are made from banana skins?
Oh, go on.
Slippers.
I
can see the tumbleweed running across everyone's screen now. They're just poor. Mike Thompson needs to get a new joke book, I think.
Yeah, why does a runner drink, or what does a runner drink when she's in last place? Ketchup. It is. They're bad. They're bad. Oh, they're so bad. They should make it.
Dear me. I've got one more for you, and then I'm not doing any more. What do you call running while listening to your favourite rapper?
I don't know.
It's a Snoop jog.
Oh, no. Well, okay, let's move on because they just are terrible.
Very bad.
What we're going to move on to is what kind of runner are you? What kind of runner are you? So we said from the outset we wanted to get on to something that would show a little bit more of the lighter side of running after last week. And so we've got a couple of clips. Should we play the first one and see how we get on? Just to say thank you to Daniel Labelle from TikTok who put that one together. Simon, do you identify with any or a mixture of those?
Yes. I'm not saying, but no, I will say which ones. I definitely feel, depending on how far I've run, there's definitely the chin upper is definitely when you're coming to the end of a race and it's just like, oh, thank God this is finishing. I definitely think I'm a flappy hands as well. I notice that sometimes when I'm running, my hands do get quite floppy. I don't think I'm the extreme duck where my legs are going out though. So, or definitely not the stiff arms. I definitely don't think I'm that, but there's definitely 2 or 3. Do you recognise with any of them?
I'd probably identify more with the grandpa one, but only not all the time. Not all the time, but I think that was more towards the end of a marathon that I did. Just exhausted. I could barely think what I was supposed to do just to keep the running style going. But I think I've got one that probably isn't typified in any of that list, and that's the elbower. I hadn't realised until you actually filmed me. Well, it's not so much up this, but it is a bit more out to the side. I couldn't believe it. So it was only when you had actually filmed me a couple of weeks back for the 5K sub 22 attempt that I thought, my goodness me, I'm so ungainly as a runner. I thought I was quite graceful, but no, I'm leaning forward and the elbows are out to the side. My goodness. So yeah, I
think I'm quite a chesty runner, so I think I'm quite a upright chest. Obviously, I didn't film that myself because I couldn't really film me, but I was obviously concentrating on you. But definitely feel, and when you say about the grandpa one as well. I'm not going to name any names, but I do notice quite a few runners at a park run that run like that. And everyone's got a different running style, but I think we can all kind of take parts of each of those and kind of, oh yeah, I do that sometimes, or I know someone who definitely does that. I know someone who does that, and I've got some friends that I'm going to keep that to myself. They've definitely got friends that do run like that.
Yeah, and I certainly recognise quite a few styles. You just have to go along to the park run, and then you would see an awful lot. And I did actually pick some up. So I filmed one of the Pacer events early this year. It was quite fascinating that when I watched the footage back, and then having seen this TikTok, suddenly trying to identify some different styles, and it's quite impressive how people can run and quickly with some of the more, say, quirky styles. And again, I'm not saying that they're wrong or anything. I think what we tend to do is to find something that's comfortable more than trying to find a running form that is maybe conserving energy. So it's all about trying to conserve energy, but also have an optimal running form for speed, or whether it's for endurance as well. But yeah, rather than you just find something comfortable. So it would be an interesting thing that if you could actually show somebody their running style, how would they react? How would they perceive it? Would they then take the time to try and change things? But I know that with my elbowing style, I was very conscious yesterday with what I knew of then trying to bring the elbows in and trying to run with my fists going in line. So yeah, that was tough for me.
But at least consciously, you were trying something different. Sometimes I think for us, sometimes it is a comfortable running style that we get into, but sometimes it's remembering to keep the knees high, keep the arms moving, to keep the momentum going. And I think I'll get to the end of a run and just my hands will I'll be like running like I'm a gorilla. My arms are halfway down my side. I'm shuffling around like this. So I think for me, sometimes it's remembering, keep upright, head looking forward, good arms, good and high knees, flicking the heels up at the back just to keep the momentum going. And sometimes it perks me up for the last bit of my run as well. So it's good to try these.
Yeah, so probably give something, other runners a little bit more of an incentive as well. Perhaps to take their pain away, they could just see something more comical going past. Should we play the other one as well? What do you think?
Yeah, go on.
Play the other one. One moment. Yeah. Now, of course, in my mind, I'm the Tom Cruise of runners. Perfect form, total energy, brute force.
Yeah, I definitely feel I'm more. I'd like to think I'm more of the Forest Gump, but and I challenge anyone that's watched Friends to tell me that they've not tried the Phoebe buffet.
Yep.
We've
Yeah,
all tried it, and I know that I've run up behind someone, swinging my arms, and then disappeared out, just not hit a horse afterwards.
yeah. Yeah, I did it with my son a couple of weeks back, just trying to get him through his 5K through the trails, and just thought, yeah, lift his spirits up a bit, because he was flagging in the last kilometre. Put on a bit of Phoebe Buffet running style. Yeah, thankfully he didn't stop falling over laughing, but just kept in going. So as I say, it can be a great source of encouragement as well. So it's not just in the style, I think also in the regalia that you could wear for running as well. And maybe that's something we've got to go on to, some just fancy dress that people turn up in. It's quite incredible and can keep people going. And even the volunteers as well. I remember seeing a couple of volunteers with the big finger sign or the big hand, trying to high five people as you go around. I think it just, yeah, helps lift the spirits when you're running. I suppose if you're really focused on something, going after a PB, yeah, you tend to get very blinkered vision. You just don't see people. You don't recognize that they are trying to talk to you. You're just so locked into what's happening. But if you're a little bit more relaxed in your run, it's not a race, well, it's great. I think it's great to have that kind of community spirit.
And I think that's very, and again, from helping pace you round the sub 22 attempt a couple of weeks ago, it was very good that I was chatting to you and chatting to people the whole way round, and I probably had 3 words from you. Yes, I'm fine. I think the 3 words that you said to me probably 2 or 3 times halfway, around, because you were blinkered and you were focused, and I was, oh yeah, we're doing all right on time. Hi dog, hi bird, just all these little things. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great time. But I think next time you'll have to wear a jester's hat or outfit, just for the entertainment and amusement of everybody else that's out there.
I'll have to call Mike Thompson. I'm sure he's got an array of different fancy dress costumes in his house after seeing what he has worn before. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I think we also do need some words with our dear Mike Thompson about the jokes that he's provided. I think we've scraped one barrel into another barrel. We're so far through them. So we've got to come up with some other ideas. Look, I think this is a beautiful moment to bring the show to a close. So it's just to say thank you so much to you viewers out there for joining us, for commenting away. Really good. But if you're joining us afterwards in the replay, it'd be great to actually have your comments as well. If there are things and themes throughout the program that you want to pick up on, you've got ideas, comments and thoughts, it'd be great if you just comment as well. So I'll be picking up on those after the program through the replay. But yeah, just be great, and thank you so much for coming along as well. So Simon, it's been great to have you on the show as well, and thank you so much for participating and giving us those wonderful tips. So final thoughts before we release them to the rest of the Sunday evening.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for taking part and getting involved today. I want to thank all of the Eastbourne, all of the running community really, just for looking out for one another. I know a lot of people are going out with more people for running now, to try and get their social, trying to keep their exercise up. It's good to see so many runners out and about, along the seafront or just running in general now. And Park Run will come back. In what form it comes back in, it will come back. But if you are running and going out and running a 5K, don't forget to log a not park run on your running profile. Go on, log your times. It gets recorded on your profile, but it doesn't obviously count towards your milestone t-shirts. Or does it? No, it won't. No, it doesn't. But it'd be nice if they had a lockdown t-shirt for people that have completed so many not park runs. Again, we'll get 10% of the royalties for doing that, I think, no doubt. But
right to Parkrun HQ, we'll get something set up, I'm sure.
Just thanks for everyone for getting in touch, whether it be offline. And it's good that the Eastbourne running community and Park Run volunteers, we're still having our weekly catch up, and it's good seeing the same faces and new faces every now and again as well. So keep strong and keep running.
Yeah, and just to say that we plan to be back in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, as things do progress, and if we do have any news of Park Run in the UK starting back up, obviously this particular show may take a different direction. But until that time, we certainly plan to be back on the air in a couple of weeks, as I say. And I think the thing that we're trying to look at is how to motivate younger runners. And certainly if you have children, if you're parents or your guardians, or if you are a club runner that does have a lot of children in there, how do you motivate your children and your loved ones as well into exercising, into jogging, into running. So I think it's a great topic to pick up on next time. If you have any ideas as well, we'd love to hear from you. So please drop us a line through the emails addresses. All the details are in the description below. Just say thank you once again, and yeah, catch you next time. Just stay safe this week. It's going to be hot. You've got the strategies in place. Now it's time to implement them. Let us know if it's working for you. And if it's not working for you, you better let us know as well so we can correct it.
Hydrate.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.